Jacob Sartorius got Grace pregnant.
Jacob Sartorius and Grace vacation for their so I guess I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon. I loved it. No, it was great. The weather was great. Me and Grace were just like spending quality time on the beach.
Oh my god.
Thank you so much. Yeah, fun fact, I've never met Grace Vanderwall.
Oh, I'm not that long.
That would be viral. Maybe we have her on the podcast.
Oh my god.
This podcast came out in May of 2025, so there's a real possibility that in the near future, and before Daniel gets released, Grace will actually get on Jacob's podcast. I think it'll be the last straw for Daniel, so every police station in the world better say their prayers. Going back to the call, it took place on Daniel's birthday, which he's not so happy about.
This is now the 15th birthday on
The 20 fucking years.
I hear him saying 15th year, which is impossible, so I'm assuming it's him misspeaking. A day later, we get a new plot trial where Daniel makes a revelation. It's always impressive to see Mr. President's ability to talk belligerent third parties down like a true peace negotiator. This incident is just one of the many signs that the other inmates were getting absolutely sick of Daniel's behavior in there, which is hardly surprising given he's never lived well among others, as we already know from the time he spent in a foster home. Eventually, this fight was contextualized in another call with Clark.
I'm not ready yet.
The next few developments don't actually take place in the colonies, but instead, Pacific, where Daniel says the jam is violating his right to vote. Grace is feeding on him because it's homeless, announces he'll be cutting his ties with Bob, and says that the videos of him making threats and the pictures of children he had on his phone were all planned by him, and that he agreed to be jailed because that would somehow help him with Grace. While it hasn't showed up in his charges or his court proceedings, if Daniel's case does ever go to trial, I'm sure the pictures he had on his phone will make it work like twice before it seems Daniel was thinking about those incidents, since on the next Tippy call, which took place on the 23rd of November, he said that Grace had written one of her songs about her.
She's played a couple of her songs in one picture, it was by a person in my disability counseling, and I was fully new. At that point, looking
Again, he's lying, as all the times he got naked online were done of his own volition. He was never reported against his will or knowledge. Additionally, only one of them that we know of took place in a shower. All the way back in the Flexburger era, for whatever reason, he recorded a video of himself naked in a shower that wasn't even on, and sent it not to a Grace troll, but instead to his actual mother. As far as I only have a screenshot of this incident of concept, why the hell did you do the video? That was not cool. I'm disappointed. Daniel, what did you do? I'm your mother. To which Daniel replied, sorry, that was an accident. My phone gets hacked every now and then. Just to remind you, I get hacked. I've never seen that photo in my life. Just like he did back then, Daniel continues to take absolutely no accountability for his actions, and instead blames the FBI for breaking it. latest mission being free to the FBI, but there are multiple publicly accessible instances of him doing just that. As the days went on, and the time for him to get admitted to a mental health facility to be evaluated for his competency was coming up, it seems that he became even more desperate to fight something.
Bob is not getting still, my public defender, he is lying to me about rape. Have you thought about this? On social media from Great, it said, fuck ass Bob is what it says. And we think the reason why it was because Bob wasn't getting honest, and he was agreeing because something getting misdemeanor charges. You have no clue why everybody is denying or rape and rape is the only one that keeps coming forward time and time after again.
Despite his lack of communication with anyone besides Cindy, he was as ardent as ever in his relationship with Grace, to the point where the public defender was getting frustrated about it and being unable to work with him.
She just started arguing with me on the phone, and this is like, real, he called me a liar. And then, by him calling me a liar, no wonder I go back in my cell, start punching myself in my face, start, hitting myself until I bleed or something.
Classic Anderson. Now, while the sources of his anxiety so far are all justified, as they all have to do with his legal punishment, things begin to look genuinely bad for him when he mentions his relationship to the other inmates.
Bob has gone completely
Hurting these people in jail is always bad, but given Daniel has mentioned before that he's in a protected custody place, meaning he's sharing it with criminals who are sex offenders and whatnot, the debt that Dan racks up may be paid back in creative ways. As was expected, probably due to his notoriously obnoxious attitude, the entire jail was turning against Daniel, from fellow inmates to the COs.
He have turned everything into a joke on purpose to try to take me off. I'm in PC, I'm in protected custody, but general population and certain COs are trying to team up together.
Eventually, he got back word from the investigators, and things were looking far worse for him on that end, too.
Yesterday, I got called out by the of the jail. They said they contacted Grace, and Grace is threatening a restraining order.
I think that's something he must be aware he's lying to himself and everyone about this, and consciously decides to keep it up because the alternative is admitting that he's a lunatic. It seems Daniel's insanity wasn't just wearing on the patience of the COs and inmates, but also the people in charge of handling his case, as they were actively threatening to worsen his conditions if he continued to nurture his delusions when talking to people outside.
And they also told me to stop contact with everyone, or they will be shutting and see that as a deliberate threat. If I contact anybody, they will throw me in the shoe if I use the phone, which goes against my amendments. They are also saying that Grace is not involved in my case when she is, because she's the illegal discovery. And the reason why I'm thinking that this might be my last call is because the jail staff are threatening to stop all calls from this day forward.
In the same call, he claimed the COs lied to him and said he was getting out, but when he packed up all his belongings to leave, they told him they were just playing with him. During this period, he still had access to screens, and he was going increasingly insane and becoming more self-destructive as a consequence.
The psychiatrist here at this jail is telling me that my mental health is doing better, but in my cell every single night punching the living crap out of myself, on purpose beating myself up to where I have cuts and bruises all over my skin and all over my body.
Additionally, the lawsuit papers he had put together to sue Bob and the U.S. government was refused by the jail's mail service, who just handed Daniel's papers back, which he claims is because he couldn't fill them out. Given he has no access to a printer or anything like that to even begin putting together the kind of paperwork you'd need to file a lawsuit, I have no idea what he even tried to mail. For all I know, he was mailing gay furry fan art to Bob or something. When November ended and December began, in a call to Clark, Daniel made a very dark claim. We should keep in mind that even here, he may be lying for attention, as he is falsely claimed to suffer from that kind of thing before. But given that he's in a PC jail with other criminals of that frustration, and that he was in debt to some of them, it's not impossible. After this call, the communications die down significantly, and for a couple of weeks, there are no new phone calls. There are, however, some emails, where Daniel announced he'd been packed up for transfer as he was getting ready to go to a facility in Springfield, Pennsylvania. But most importantly, he made an announcement in classic Daniel Larson style. Emergency. The feds are trying to get me to cut ties with my dad, and Bob, and Tina, and Rose. They were now telling me to quit my career, and Bob is a troll, as well as my dad. My lawyer told me to stop. I also got on new meds because they came up with an excuse for my fatigue. Also, I guess Tina called the jail and told me to stop calling. Be careful of lies going around that I don't shower, because I shower 2 times a day and brush my teeth 3 times a day. I might get a pardon from Biden or Trump, because I am an independent. First off, Latuda is antipsychotic, schizophrenia, bipolar depression, but I don't know what it means by they came up with an excuse for my Latuda. Secondly, while the fact that Ryan's population praised her is not a justification for the jail trying to cut his contact with the outside world off, it makes even more sense that he was actively trying to call Grace and Tina from the jail. Lastly, I am absolutely calling cap on Daniel's showering activity. Let alone Grace. A little while after this call, there was another couple of phone calls made to Clark, where it's revealed that Bob was still paying for Daniel's phone bill, which I'm assuming means he was sending Daniel money to get some other electronic drug equivalents for his new jail's commissary. A day prior to Christmas, Daniel got transferred to Grady County, and soon after, to the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, where his evaluation would finally begin. There was another Clark call right before he went to the medical center, but it's not worth playing since not much is said, and the audio quality is absolutely terrible. But one of the few noteworthy pieces of info that came out of it was that Daniel was now on a 23-hour lockdown, meaning he only had 1 hour of yard time per day, and no access to a phone or even books, meaning he was likely going nuts again because of it. Because his evaluation began, it meant that his case wasn't going to get dismissed anytime soon, as it would keep getting postponed indefinitely until he was declared competent. For many people, this transfer to the MCFD sealed Daniel's fate, as he was probably going to stay there for the rest of his life, as there was no way he was ever going to be deemed competent. As the months went by and no more calls came from Daniel to anyone at all, we can safely assume that they just didn't allow for their inmates to take calls. Or, at the very least, that Daniel in specific lacks that privilege due to how tied the deterioration of his mental state is to contact with the outside world. His court case has been regularly getting updates since then, as the records of it are publicly accessible. However, we can see that many of them have been restricted or classified. Again, probably to deter any outsider from knowing too much about the ongoings and intervening somehow. In January, Sippy attempted to legally unseal the records, but the motion was denied, meaning whoever's in charge has been made aware of Daniel's online infamy and the kind of attention that it attracts. As far as communications with the outside world are concerned, the last one happened through a handwritten letter Daniel wrote to Sippy. This is Daniel. Just to let you know, the jail has blocked all my calls with my lawyer and family. I can send letters. Can you please keep sending me updates? I'm now on medication. Can you please keep sending me pics? Would you also be able to buy 3 books for me to read? On the other side of the letter, Daniel names 3 erotic books he wants Sippy to buy now, and promises to pay him back. This is Daniel's seemingly one-line client with the outside, and he uses it to ask for free books. What an ungrateful specimen.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Morris. I am thinking of becoming transgender.
Even since this letter, there's no known communication, and although his court proceedings continue to be updated, there's no sign that a conclusion to this case is coming soon. In late April, Clark reappeared on subreddit, and despite no solid evidence whatsoever, he made the claim that Daniel had been declared competent for trial, but this is quite unlikely since he's still in the same mental health facility, and his stay appears to have been extended. Now, if he does eventually get declared competent to stand trial, and believe me, he might be, he will probably get released on time served due to how long he's been in lockdown. In order for him to be declared competent for trial, he doesn't need to necessarily dishevel himself among his delusions about grace. He just needs to be able to understand his legal circumstances, and especially now that he's on meds, it's definitely not impossible. On the other hand, he's been there for half a year at this point with no significant updates, so it may well be over for Danderson. After years of being sandblasted by the cold winds of Colorado, he's finally found housing. In a mental hospital, no less. Perhaps this is where he belongs.
You're just a young kid. What are you doing here? You gotta be out in the convertible while bird dogging chicks and banging beaver. What are you doing here, for Christ's sake?
Now, what I find suspicious is I've heard rumors that Ray Vanderwall has an OnlyFans account.
Hopefully, they're keeping the game away from electronic.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And that phrase is perfect to describe when a massive content creator gets into controversy bad enough to end their career. But when it comes to Pirate Software, he wasn't just a big content creator. He was someone who managed to blow up from 13,000 subscribers all the way to 1.1 million in less than 2 months, taking over the YouTube Shorts algorithm at some point, and even making over $50,000 in 1 week, which, however, he also managed to lose all of that just as fast. His actions didn't just make it unlikable, but it exposed him to both the other brands and as a person, making people realize that he had subscribed to them over lies and exaggerations, and never showed this to himself. So, no doubt you've heard about this already, so I'm talking about it because it's that much of a crazy story, and so I thought of making a video going back to the first ever incident and how it led us here today. So without further ado, let's do it. Alright, so the first question to even ask here is, where the hell did Pirate Software even come from? Well, he created his channel in 2016, and while his channel would grow over the years, it would do so in a very slow manner, reaching 13,000 subscribers after 7 years. But then, at the end of October 2023, he would take a decision that would change his life forever. And that would be uploading highlights of his Twitch streams as YouTube Shorts. These were such an incredible success that for a while they took over the YouTube Shorts algorithm. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all if a huge portion of you watching this video right now came across these shorts on your own time. The views speak for themselves, with tens of millions of people being exposed to his channel for the first time and liking it. But how did he manage to do that with so many others? Well, many different shorts actually share the same factors. All you have to do is just watch one to understand the appeal. This short right here, titled Social Engineering, has every single of these factors combined. So let's take a look at the factors.
Suppose it was a big fire with social engineering task for answers. Then I give my questions answered. I looked at it, I got my questions answered. I shouldn't have. That was the problem. They're not supposed to answer those. And one of the things I found that was really interesting is people that had been there for 1 year were really difficult. The people that had been there for 5 years were really easy. What have we learned? We've learned that training is everybody could actually work in a company, not training in a course area. They never got training. So the director of CS came and he said, I want the names. And I said, I'm not giving you the names. You're still part of this one. My boss said, my boss said, you got the names. I said, yeah, there's only get one. I said, no. I said, I'm not giving you the names, but. And then I sat down and said, look, I'm not giving you the names because at the end, you fire all of these people. They're your best employees. It was the big problems. And in 4 years, you'll have the exact same problem with big employees. I said that it was 6 months training. Guess what? That thing did the same thing. All these people passed flying cars. Answered my questions.
Well, there you have it. The key voice, the confidence, the eloquence in his speech, as well as the whiteboard he was drawing on the wall that was meant to soothe the attention span issues Jensen had, was the perfect combination. In addition, this story made out of achievements, but not just any achievements, but all achievements who saved 8 employees from losing their jobs by standing up to the boss. And where did that boss work? At some unknown company? No, he worked at the grand, prestigious video game company, Blizzard Entertainment. Yes, that's right. This guy right here, talking in such an amazing, eloquent tone, worked at Blizzard Entertainment, and that's something he will always mention in chats.
I worked at Blizzard. Blizzard for 7 years. Blizzard. I used to work at Blizzard for 7 years.
Anyway, we'll get back to that. But for now, we have to listen to that short. Pirate Software had gone from 13,000 subscribers to 1 million. That's 2 months, going from 13,000 to 1.1 million. And over time, his shorts have racked up almost 2.3 billion views. A massive, astounding achievement in such a short amount of time. But YouTube wasn't the only platform that benefited. I mean, these shorts